Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state.
For years, the British monarchy has played it cool and kept a tight lid on its private storms. But some secrets do not stay locked down forever. In this version of the story, a quiet night aboard Camilla's private yacht suddenly turned into pure chaos when a shocking security alert ripped through the silence. What was supposed to be a calm, hidden moment away from cameras and gossip quickly became a full-blown royal headache. Rumors of a truth buried for more than 30 years started swirling fast, and now people cannot stop asking the same question. What was found? And why is it blowing up right now? On a freezing night in March 2026, London sat under a ceiling of heavy clouds, dark and low, like the sky was carrying drama of its own. A cold wind pushed through the city streets, dragging in that sharp seaside chill, while the roads stayed quiet, the lights stayed low, and the whole place felt way too still for comfort. At first, everything looked normal enough. The calm almost felt too perfect, too smooth, too clean. But miles away from the city buzz, away from press flashes and palace talk, something strange was brewing near the coast of Brighton, where a private royal yacht known as Windsor Grace rested on the water. This was not some average boat by any stretch. It was elegant, polished, locked down, and built for privacy. Reportedly gifted by King Charles III to Camilla, the yacht was meant to be a personal escape, a place where royal pressure could fade for a little while and the outside noise could be shut out completely. No cameras, no crowd, no endless questions, just darkness and the slow roll of the sea. But at exactly 1:47 a.m., that peace was smashed apart when a sharp red alert tore through the royal security system. This was not treated like a random glitch or a tiny tech slip either. It hit like something serious had just gone down. The yacht's security setup was no joke. It tracked movement through sensors, cameras, and layered monitoring systems designed to catch even the smallest thing out of place. And this time, according to the alert, it caught something. The warning was direct, loud, and impossible to brush off. An intrusion had reportedly been detected right at the yacht's location. In a split second, the whole mood changed. What had looked calm from the outside now carried a real sense of pressure and danger. Inside secure monitoring rooms, alarms flashed, screens lit up, and every eye locked onto one point on the map. Operators leaned in hard, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. The incoming data was tight, exact, and honestly a little eerie. This did not look like random motion or a harmless system hiccup. Something, or someone, had crossed into a zone that was supposed to be off-limits, sealed, and untouchable. Communication lines opened at once, voices turned sharp, and emergency protocols snapped into place because every second suddenly counted. Out on the water, the yacht itself still looked peaceful, rocking softly like nothing had happened. From a distance, you would never guess anything was wrong. But back in the control rooms, the pressure kept rising. The bigger problem was not just the alert, it was the ugly question behind it. How had anyone gotten past royal security in the first place? That system had layers on layers for a reason. It was built to stop this exact kind of mess before it ever got close. So if something really had slipped through, then somebody had a problem on their hands. And right after that came the question nobody wanted to say out loud. Was this a mistake, a failed test, or something much more serious? As more information rolled in, the tension only got heavier. The signal was not dropping off, not glitching, not fading into static. It stayed steady, deliberate, and locked in. Whatever triggered the system was, at least according to the monitoring feed, still there. Time started to feel weird, stretched out and heavy, even while everyone moved faster. From that point on, every move had to be handled with extreme care. One wrong step could turn confusion into disaster. The night no longer felt calm or classy. It felt loaded, like the air itself was carrying a secret no one was ready for. A strange fear settled over the whole situation, quiet but hard to shake. What began as a normal night had now turned into something nobody on that team was going to forget. And as the system kept tracking the reported intrusion, one thing became painfully clear. This was not the end of the drama, it was just the start. The real questions were stacking up fast. What happened out there, and what was security about to uncover? Within minutes, the silence on the water was broken wide open. Fast security boats cut through the dark sea with low engines and serious purpose, carrying elite officers straight toward the yacht. Every person on board knew this was no casual call and no sleepy late-night check. The alarm had come in sharp, specific, and impossible to ignore. Somewhere on that vessel, something had triggered a response strong enough to bring in immediate action. The officers moved in quickly, surrounding the yacht with clean coordination while searchlights swept over its glossy exterior. From the outside, though, nothing looked disturbed at all. The yacht seemed calm, almost too calm, swaying gently with the water like a scene from a luxury postcard. But that silence only made the whole thing feel worse. The team boarded in a controlled sweep, expecting signs of panic, forced entry, maybe even proof of a struggle. What they found instead was way more unsettling. Nothing. No broken glass on the floor, no smashed locks, no overturned chairs, no rushed footprints, no signs that anyone had torn through the place. Everything looked exactly how it should, neat to the point of feeling eerie. Cushions were in place, surfaces were spotless, and the rooms looked frozen in a weird kind of perfect order. That was the part that hit hardest. The system had been triggered, but the scene gave them almost nothing back. And standing in the middle of that tension was Colonel Robert Harland, a man with years of experience in high-risk security work and a reputation for staying cool when things got ugly. He was not the kind of man who got rattled by shadows. Harland scanned the room slowly, taking in every detail with the kind of focus that comes from seeing real danger up close. Then he cut through the silence with a line that stopped everyone cold. There are no false alarms. That was not just talk for him, it was a rule. If the system reacted, then something caused it. End of story. The team traded quick looks and kept moving because this was no moment for lazy guesses. In a setup like this, a clean room could be just as disturbing as a wrecked one. They pushed deeper into the yacht, clearing one section at a time. Living area, dining space, corridors, storage compartments, hidden corners, every single spot got checked with care because the smallest clue could change the whole picture. Their movements were sharp, controlled, almost robotic, like a team trained for moments exactly like this. But underneath that clean discipline, something else was creeping in fast: unease. The deeper they moved into the yacht, the more that perfect calm started to feel off. Not peaceful. Staged. Too neat, too exact, like someone had set the scene on purpose. Then they reached the master bedroom and the energy shifted instantly. The air felt heavier, tighter, like the room itself was holding something back. The door opened slowly, and at first glance, it matched everything else. Clean, spotless, untouched. The bed was perfectly made, surfaces shining, every detail locked in place. But something was wrong, and everyone felt it. No one could explain it right away, but it was there. Subtle, quiet, but impossible to ignore. The team spread out, scanning every inch with sharper focus now. And that is when something finally stood out. Along one wall sat a bookshelf, neatly arranged, books lined up with almost unnatural precision. At a quick glance, it looked normal, blending right into the room's design. But to trained eyes, it screamed intention. It was too perfect. One officer stepped closer, narrowing his focus, checking every detail carefully. And then he saw it. Hidden just out of plain sight, tucked behind the alignment of books, was a small black box. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just sitting there like it did not matter. Plain, simple, almost forgettable. But its placement told a completely different story. This was not random. This was not careless. Someone had put it there on purpose. The energy in the room snapped tight instantly. Every instinct kicked in at once. That box did not belong there. Colonel Harland stepped forward slowly, eyes locked in, reading the situation without rushing it. The silence grew heavier, like the entire yacht had been waiting for this exact second to happen. No one spoke. No one needed to. They all understood the same thing at once. The alarm had not made a mistake. It had been triggered for a reason, and now that reason was sitting right in front of them. This was not random. This was planned. Every detail pointed to intention, to someone who knew exactly how to move, where to place things, and how to stay invisible. And that realization made everything worse. So what was inside the box? What caused the system to go off like that? That answer hit harder than anyone expected. Under bright floodlights, the yacht's deck transformed into something unreal, almost like a stage set for a moment nobody was ready for. The ocean stretched out into darkness, calm on the surface but carrying a heavy tension underneath. And right there, at the center of it all, sat that box. It was small, but it demanded attention. Every eye locked onto it as it was carefully brought forward. No rush, no noise, just slow, controlled movement. Then, it was opened. Inside, resting on deep velvet, was a collection of jewelry so striking that the moment itself seemed to freeze. Each piece caught the light perfectly. almost like it was revealing itself after being hidden away for years. They were elegant, historic, and for those who recognized them, unmistakable. These were pieces once associated with Diana, Princess of Wales. A soft pearl necklace glowing with quiet grace, diamond earrings flashing with sharp brilliance, a sapphire bracelet rich in color, bold and impossible to ignore. These were not just accessories. They meant something. They carried history, emotion, memory. They were tied to a woman who had connected with millions around the world, someone remembered for her presence, her compassion, and the impact she left behind. Even now, years later, her name still carried weight. People still felt something when they heard it. And that is exactly what made this discovery hit so hard. Because these pieces were not supposed to be here. They were not supposed to be anywhere. They had disappeared back in 1997, on the same day as Diana's funeral. A day filled with grief, attention, and global focus. While the world watched and mourned, those items vanished without a clear trace. Security was stretched thin at the time, overwhelmed by the scale of everything happening. And somewhere in that moment, those valuables were gone. No solid answers, no confirmed recoveries, nothing that gave closure. For nearly 30 years they stayed missing, not displayed, not confirmed in private hands, just gone. Until now. Because somehow, against all expectations, they showed up again on Camilla's private yacht. And that is where things turned from shocking to deeply uncomfortable. There were no clear explanations, no quick statements to calm things down. Just silence. Heavy, lingering silence that raised more questions than answers ever could. How did they disappear so completely at such a critical moment? Who took them? Why keep them hidden for so long? And the biggest question of all, how did they end up here, in a place tied so closely to another chapter of the same royal story? The mood on that deck shifted fast. What started as a discovery turned into something much bigger. Something messy, complicated, and impossible to ignore. This was not just about objects anymore. This was about history coming back in a way nobody expected. Because the past does not always stay buried. Sometimes it comes back loud. So how do Diana's belongings end up on Camilla's yacht? What really connects these moments? That question pulls everything toward a deeper story, one that goes back years. According to former Royal Protection Officer Ken Worf, there was once a moment that showed just how tense things really were behind the scenes. He spoke about an intense night earlier in his career while protecting Diana, recalling a gathering hosted by Annabelle Elliott that did not stay calm for long. What looked like a normal social event quickly shifted into something far more serious. The atmosphere turned tight, filled with quiet tension that could not be ignored. It became one of those moments that revealed what was really going on beneath the surface. His account gives a rare look inside that world, where pressure, emotion, and complicated relationships were always present. It was not just public headlines. There were real private struggles playing out at the same time, shaping everything in ways people did not always see. Diana's life was always under a microscope, and that night proved it more than ever. When she arrived at the party, it instantly caught people off guard, because no one expected her to be there. The atmosphere shifted almost immediately as quiet whispers spread and curious glances followed her every move. Still, she carried herself with calm control and quiet dignity, even though beneath that composed exterior was a strong need for clarity and truth that refused to stay buried. As the evening continued, something began to bother her more and more. Prince Charles was nowhere to be seen, and that absence did not feel sluchine or harmless. Her concern quickly turned into urgency, and she asked Worf to help her find him. The way she said it made it clear she already suspected what they might discover, and that feeling added tension to every step as they moved through the rooms, trying not to draw attention, but staying completely focused on their search. Eventually, they reached a more private part of the house, away from the crowd and noise, and that is where everything became clear, without needing explanation. Charles was there, and he was with Camilla Parker Bowles. The moment felt heavy and still, like time had paused just long enough for reality to fully settle in. It was no longer speculation or doubt. It was something real, right in front of them. Instead of stepping back or avoiding the situation, Diana made a choice that defined her strength in that moment. She approached directly, without raising her voice or losing control, but with words that carried undeniable emotional weight. She made it clear that she understood what had been happening and refused to be treated as if she were unaware. There was honesty in her tone, but also pain. and that combination made the moment even more powerful. Worf later described this as one of the bravest things he had ever seen her do, not just because she confronted the situation, but because of how she handled it. There was vulnerability in her presence, but also strength, showing that she was not just a public figure shaped by expectations, but a person standing up for herself during a deeply personal and painful moment. Camilla's response, as recalled later, was calm but distant, and it did not offer clear denial or apology. Instead, it gave the impression that the situation was already understood behind closed doors, something that had moved beyond secrecy. That quiet reaction spoke volumes and made the moment even more revealing, exposing the emotional distance and tension that had long existed within the marriage. Looking back, that encounter is often seen as a turning point, a moment where the fragile balance could no longer be maintained. It helped set in motion the events that would eventually lead to separation and later divorce, showing that the issues between them were no longer hidden or manageable. It also revealed the complexity of Diana's life, where public admiration existed alongside private struggles that were just as intense and real. So when the discovery of the jewelry reached Prince William, the impact was immediate and deeply personal. While others might have seen valuable historical items, to him they represented something far more meaningful. These were pieces connected to his mother, tied to moments of her life, and filled with emotional weight that could not be measured in material terms. As he processed the situation, he came to a realization that shifted everything. "These things didn't just appear," he said quietly, understanding that objects like those do not vanish and return without reason. That thought removed any sense of coincidence and replaced it with something far more serious. This was not sluchinist, it was intentional, and that made it far more concerning. The idea that someone had placed those items there raised immediate questions about access and knowledge. This was not something an outsider could easily do. It required familiarity with systems, security, and timing, suggesting that whoever was responsible knew exactly how things worked. That realization made the situation even more unsettling, because it pointed inward rather than outward. As investigators continued, more troubling details began to surface. Security cameras that should have captured everything had been deliberately turned off, not broken or damaged, but intentionally disabled. This was not luck or chance, it was careful planning carried out with precision. Every step suggested control, patience, and experience, making it clear this was a calculated act rather than a spontaneous one. The turning point came from a hidden camera that had gone unnoticed for months. At first, it seemed unimportant, but when the footage was reviewed, it revealed something that changed everything. A figure appeared in the darkness, moving with quiet confidence and clear purpose, as if they knew exactly what they were doing and where they were going. The person was carrying a small box, handling it carefully as though its contents were extremely important. They placed it in a specific hidden location and then left just as quietly, without leaving obvious traces. That single piece of footage gave investigators something real to follow and shifted the entire direction of the case. After detailed analysis, the individual was identified as Marcus Hale, someone connected to the royal household and familiar within those circles. When questioned, he initially denied involvement, maintaining a calm and controlled attitude. But as the evidence was presented, especially the footage, that confidence began to weaken under pressure. Eventually, he admitted the truth, saying, "I was following orders," a statement that immediately raised even more serious questions. When pressed to reveal who gave those orders, there was a pause before he finally answered. The name he gave changed everything and brought a new level of gravity to the situation. From that moment, the investigation moved into much deeper territory, connecting present events to a complex and emotional past. Attention returned to the years following Diana's death, when public opinion was intense and comparisons between her and Camilla were constant. Diana remained widely admired and deeply respected, while Camilla faced criticism and struggled for acceptance over time. Although public perception gradually softened, many believed that the past never fully disappears. The emotional weight of those earlier years, combined with ongoing scrutiny, created a background that made the current situation even more complicated. It was no longer just about the discovery, but about history resurfacing in a way that could not be ignored. The final stage unfolded in a private meeting, away from public attention and media coverage. King Charles III and Prince William were present, facing the situation not as public figures, but as individuals dealing with something serious and deeply personal. The evidence was presented clearly and carefully, leaving little room for doubt. At first, there were attempts to respond, to explain or question parts of the situation. but those efforts could not hold against the consistency of the facts. Gradually, the room fell into silence, the kind that comes when the truth becomes impossible to avoid. It was a moment of realization that carried both emotional and practical consequences. In that silence, Camilla spoke honestly, admitting, "I was afraid of never truly belonging." Her words revealed vulnerability and the pressure of living under constant judgment, showing a more human side of the situation. However, that honesty did not erase what had already happened or the seriousness of its impact. For King Charles, the moment carried weight tied to both personal and public responsibility. For Prince William, it was even more sensitive, connected to his mother's memory and the importance of preserving her legacy with dignity and respect. His response was shaped not just by duty but by emotion and loyalty. In the end, a quiet but firm decision was made. There were no dramatic announcements, only controlled actions. Camilla stepped back from public duties, while official communication was carefully managed to maintain stability. On the surface, everything appeared calm, but internally, the situation had changed in a way that could not be undone. This story goes beyond a single event or public controversy. It shows how the past can return when it is least expected, and how unresolved emotions and hidden decisions can shape outcomes over time. It also highlights a deeper truth, one that remains constant no matter the situation. Truth does not rush or force itself forward. It moves quietly, patiently, and steadily until it can no longer be ignored. And when it finally surfaces, it changes everything. The truth had finally surfaced, but instead of bringing clear answers, it left behind a deeper sense of unease that refused to fade. What seemed like a single shocking discovery had unraveled into something far more complicated, touching history, emotion, and the fragile balance within the royal world. Even as official silence settled over the situation, the weight of what had happened could still be felt in every quiet room and behind every careful statement. Inside the palace, things were no longer as steady as they once appeared. Trust had been shaken, questions lingered without clear resolution, and the sense of control that once defined everything now felt uncertain. Every decision moving forward carried more pressure, because this was no longer just about reputation, it was about legacy and the stories that would be remembered for years to come. For Prince William, the impact remained deeply personal. This was never just about objects or headlines. It was about protecting the memory of his mother and ensuring that her story remained respected. That responsibility did not fade with time, and moments like this only made it stronger. The past was not something distant to him. It was something that still lived in the present, shaping how he saw every new development. For King Charles, the situation stood at the intersection of duty and personal life. Every choice carried consequences not only for the monarchy, but for the people within it. Balancing those realities was never simple, and now it had become even more delicate. The line between private truth and public image had blurred, making every step forward more complicated than before. And as for Camilla, her quiet step back from public life left more questions than closure. Was this the end of the situation, or just another chapter in a story that refuses to fully settle? That uncertainty lingered, adding to the sense that not everything had been fully revealed. Because the reality is this: some stories do not end cleanly. They echo, they return, and they leave space for doubt long after the moment has passed. What happened on that yacht may have been uncovered, but the deeper reasons behind it still feel just out of reach. And maybe that is what makes this so unsettling. Not just what was found, but what might still remain hidden.